Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Andrew Moran, Dave Patterson, Graham Noble, and John Clark, and this is The Conservative Five, an online TV production of Liberty Nation News. On today's episode, what comes around? After vowing he would never, Joe Biden did it. And now we talk about the baptismal pardon of Hunter Biden today. The Biden administration is a gift that keeps on giving in the Inheritance of Instability for 47. And panel will discuss another appointment that has one department feeling kind of queasy. FBI braces for Hurricane Patel. Finally, it's another quick fix to flex the brain and just for fun, Volume 61. It's all coming up in this edition of The Conservative Five.
And now on to the really big show.
After vowing to allow justice to play out, President Joe Biden caved in a big splashy way. The pardoning of his son, Hunter. Not just any old pardon, not so fast. It's the pardon of all pardons. The pardon for any federal crime committed between January of 2014 through the day his daddy signed the document. It was a baptismal pardon of Hunter, and it cleansed him of all past sins in the eye of the law. Break down all that is involved here, Graham. What crimes now vanish into thin air?
Well, that's an interesting question, Sarah, the way you phrase it, because, well, what crimes? Any and all crimes. Obviously, Hunter had felony convictions, 3 of them relating to making false statements on a background check form to purchase a firearm, and then also being in possession of a firearm while being a user of illegal substances. You know, we could argue that, the libertarian in me wonders why that's even a crime at all. And it is in fact true that very rarely does anybody go to jail or even see the inside of a courtroom for making a false statement on a background check form to purchase a firearm. Technically, it is illegal, but these cases are almost never prosecuted. So from the Biden's point of view, you might think, well, they dragged him into court and they slapped him with felony charges over that. Maybe that was a bit heavy-handed. That's a matter, we can speculate and debate about that all day. But anyway, those were the charges. And then there were additional tax evasion charges which were prosecuted in Los Angeles. Now, so obviously all of those convictions now go away. But more than that, the pardon itself, or the clemency warrant, as it's officially called, says that Hunter is basically off the hook, quote, for those offenses against the United States which he has committed or may have committed or taken part in during the period from January 1st, 2014 through December 1st, 2024. Now, very quickly, the judge that was assigned to the tax evasion case was, and his name is Mark Scarcy, and he was none too pleased at all with this pardon. He had a lot of problems with it, but one of the main problems he had with it, and this is interesting, is that Joe Biden signed the pardon on December 1st, and the pardon runs through December 1st. So technically, once the ink was dry on the pardon, Hunter could have gone out and on December 1st, before midnight, and committed any crimes that he wanted, and he would have already been pardoned for them. Now, okay, that sounds like a hypothetical, but technically that is true. And that's why Judge Scarcy is actually saying that this pardon is unconstitutional because it exceeds the president's pardon authority. So the story of this perhaps might not yet be over.
Interesting that you phrased that, just coulda, shoulda, woulda. Hey, obviously Biden has nothing to lose at this point. I mean, nothing at all. He's going to slide off into history. But what about the Democratic Party? I mean, Dave, are they going to suffer from this, or are they going to be covered as usual and have an excuse?
Sarah, it's not clear to me that anyone in the Democratic Party cares two hoots what Biden does or doesn't do. there are a few who have put on their sanctimonious hat, and there's a modicum of character that they're trying to project with disappointment, but it's just short of condemnation or outrage. So the pardon is not a slam dunk, however, in any event, because it may absolve Hunter of guilt for the rest of time, but it doesn't absolve Biden from what he did as a former vice president. And from what I understand, the vice president doesn't enjoy the same immunity that the president does, and most of the family corruption took place when he was vice president. The president's brother is also at risk, but I predict by the end of next week, the president's brother will be pardoned as well. One other nuance is that now the Congress can call Hunter in to testify, and he can't claim Fifth Amendment privilege of self-incrimination because he's already been pardoned for any incrimination. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of this sorts out, but I hope that the new Congress doesn't spend much time on it. It's just kind of tilting at windmills, in my view, and they've got much better things to put on their docket. And besides, if Biden were going to do a book deal, he'd have to remember stuff. And we know Special Counsel Hur has explained that's a wasted effort.
Hey, Dave, are there any betting odds for your prognostication? Anything on Pauly Market? Send a quick dash on?
Yeah, I think it's probably 99-1 in favor.
But, here's over the last week, social media has gone wild on this. And there's a compilation, it's probably 20 minutes long, of all the different legacy media channels, cable news, all the biggies, talking about when Joe Biden said he would never, ever pardon Hunter. And they gushed at, this is a president that believes in the law of the land. And now they have egg on their faces. So how are they reacting, Clark? What do you think's going on with these guys? Are they even going to talk about it? It's just another, we were wrong, sorry.
Karine Jean-Pierre has been making the rounds a lot with her repeated assurances. No, it's never going to happen. Is it any surprise to anyone that this administration that has so lost credibility is going out on perhaps the saddest note of credibility of its entire tenure? This whole travesty extends before he ever ran for president. Many Democrats have been very outspoken that this was sabotaged from day one, that he never should have even run because of the corruption of his son and his family. And Dave's quite right that it certainly looks like really he's circling the wagons and will be pardoning others, that really in pardoning his son, he's pardoning himself. He's shielding himself from the so-called lawfare or accountability that this administration may face for some of its dealings that came to light on that computer that was so hidden from Americans in the 2020 election. So I think that
Cringeworthy.
to me, it's like the last closing pages of a surreal chapter. This presidency has been marked by surreal departures from truth and the rule of law. And so I do think actually it's caused horrible damage to the Democratic Party. They have horrible credibility problems. I'm not entirely sympathetic, but I do think that some Democrats themselves are literally, it's causing huge divisions. Some are poo-pooing it and making defenses. And Biden himself, I guess, said that, this is to protect his son from relapse into addiction that the Republicans are trying to push him into. If you really care about your son, you should let him go to prison. But anyway, so I think it's their problem. It's as far as the party, it's not just a Biden problem. It's a credibility problem for all the Democrats, and I think that we're seeing that sort of infighting as a reflection of that.
And I'm going to declare this right now. I don't think we're going to ever allow the use of the term poo-pooing to ever be on the Conservative Five again. So just I'm warning you. Anyway, Andrew.
Got me? Did I?
Yeah, you.
Oh, well, I'll use it again then.
Darn it.
Is the poo-poo the beauties?
Andrew, what are people saying internationally? Do they care? Do they even care about what's going on with this shenanigans in this country?
Sorry, guys. I think people outside the United States just do not care about the president's son. Canada is worrying about these tariffs that Trump is threatening us with. South Korea is flirting with martial law. Europe is Europe, slowing down. Mexico has all these, migrant invasions. So no, guys, sorry. The rest of the world does not care about Hunter Biden at all.
So it's just basically a bunch of Americans worried about the man cub. And
it's just for news junkies. All the stuff is just the plain. It's all popcorn entertainment. That's a whole sideshow of U.S. politics these days. Just grab your popcorn, or in some other cases, Pepto-Bismol, and just watch CNN all day or MSNBC and get a kick.
I'm not at all going to kind of defend Hunter. That's not my intention. I'm not trying to excuse any of his behavior. I mean, he really was. I could think of all kinds of words that I would use to describe him. I'm not going to go into that. I also happen to think he is perhaps suffering from one or more personality disorders, to be perfectly honest with you. But, I don't know that for sure. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm also not a biologist, so maybe he's not actually a man. I don't know. I can't tell. But anyway, but one thing I will say is that there's no doubt that, Hunter Biden's life was mostly thrown into the spotlight and has been the subject of so much media attention purely because of who he is, even despite his crimes or other alleged crimes, such as money laundering and influence peddling, and the list goes on and on and on. He would have been he would have had, a few column inches on page 5 or 6 of national newspapers had he been anyone else but Hunter Biden.
What this does is the pardon by the president of his son tends to start to close the door on any outrage that Trump might elicit by pardoning the January 6th victims.
Good point. That's a good point.
This is what I find interesting when it comes to this story, is the economic angle of this. Because if you look at all the credit downgrades by Moody's and Fitch, and you have comments from Janet Yellen talking about why the U.S. is such an attractive place, is because of the rule of law. But if this is the new normal, where you have the sitting president saying, the justice system has been infected by politics, then you start to question, okay, can you really park your money in the United States based on the idea of the rule of law? I mean, the U.S. government itself has already thwarted the rule of law. You look at just happened on foreign policy when the U.S. government froze and liquidated and confiscated $300 billion in Russian assets with a country that the U.S. is not even at war with. That's unprecedented. So, many people have questioned this too. Financial analysts, Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, Senator Rand Paul, they've questioned if the U.S. it remains a safe harbor for foreign investors based on these recent developments.
I don't know. It's only going to get more interesting. So, so much for vows and promises made by the outgoing administration. But I'm kind of curious as to who Biden will pardon next. Thanks for playing, panel, and thanks for tuning in. President Joe Biden is about to walk away from a destabilized Middle East and a bloody war in Ukraine. In 4 years, Mr. Biden has turned the clock back on international relations between the U.S. and China, the realignment of allies with Russia and China, and Iran is skulking around in the back looking for an opening to wreak havoc. Quite the inheritance for Donald Trump to try to turn back the clock on this kind of chaos. What we are hearing is that nuclear weapons are not off the table for Ukraine if peace talks end badly. So where are we with all of the international players on the world stage? Dave, I mean, this is all confusing to most people.
Well, to keep the world stage metaphor going, the scenery is chaotic. An audience really wouldn't know if they're watching Cats or My Fair Lady. As far as the nuclear weapons, Jake Sullivan has come out categorically and said that nuclear weapons are off the table, period. But, NATO and Ukraine are in confusion, over a situation that's their own making. Biden has just authorized $725 million in counter drone and mobile rocket systems. And many believe that the ammunition for the rocket systems are more ATACMS, which makes Russia extremely excited. There's no end state strategy after all this time. And it's interesting, however, that since Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky met with President Trump, he now entertains a ceasefire in place, which effectively, cedes land to Russia that it's captured. I think he believes his ace in the hole is immediate NATO membership, but that is by no means likely to happen anytime soon. And what he can count on, though, is that if there's a ceasefire, that Trump will make sure that the Russian President Putin honors it. And I think that's something that Biden could never have pulled off. And then you turn to the Middle East. And oh, my goodness, President-elect Trump's warning that the terrorists give up hostages or they'll be hell to pay. Fortunately, he doesn't say who's going to be paying. And I suspect that he has Iran in mind. And I'll bet you Iran thinks so, too. Yeah. Syria is ablaze, and in what can only be categorized as a say what moment, reports from Israel are that Bashar al-Assad has asked Israel, the Israeli government, for help in defeating Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the opposition forces that have just captured the city of Aleppo. You can't make this stuff up. The Syrian army forces just cut and ran out of that city. Reporting from Israel also suggests that Israel might entertain that idea like they did in 2012. But the catch here is that they're going to have to remove all the Iranians and Iranian proxies from Syria.
Is there an ability to stay in some sort of plateau with everything that's going on everywhere? This isn't just one little, messed up dictatorial leader, that we're fussing with. So, can we stabilize before Trump is sworn in? And will Trump be able to change the course we are on, Graham? I mean, what is that even possible at this point?
Well, I don't think, look, Trump is not a military man, and he's never had any particular stomach for, kind of large scale military missions or adventures that involve U.S. forces. I think Trump is much more likely to use economic, if you like, threats, economic weapons. He's likely to, leverage foreign aid and stuff like that against some of these countries to make them, kind of calm down and quieten down and do what they're told, so to speak. So I actually do believe that Trump will kind of manage to prevent any one of these countries from kind of hurling towards the abyss and going into an all-out kind of large-scale international or global military conflict. And I think he'll do it by negotiations using the power of the US dollar, such as it is. Now, the problem is what happens between, we're coming up now on Inauguration Day. It's only a few weeks away, but an awful lot can happen within a few weeks. And one wonders just how bad this situation could get in any one of these places. Syria, as Dave alluded to, that, the Syria is practically just been almost kind of ripped apart by this new surprise takeover in Aleppo. And then, you've got Israel still fighting Hezbollah, and of course the Ukraine thing, which is, who knows when that war can end. But then again, I think maybe Trump will at some point within his, I was going to say his first term, is actually his second term and also his last term in the White House. I believe that he will bring some kind of maybe not permanent but lasting ceasefire, or even maybe some kind of peace treaty. And again, I think he'll do it by kind of threatening both sides behind the scenes. He's got plenty of leverage with Ukraine, because he can just say, look, we're just not giving you any more money, we're not giving you any more weapons, you better come to a deal with Putin, even if it means ceding land, which it probably inevitably will, I think. I think that war will end with Ukraine being a smaller country than it is now.
Mr. Clark, Trump and his new BFF. I mean, Kennedy is so anti-war. And Trump wants to end all of this struggle and strife. And Graham gave us a lot of ideas on how maybe that could happen. But will he do it?
Well, so you've raised a few issues there, and I wouldn't want to diminish in any way what Graham had to say there. But I think it goes maybe a step too far. I actually think that it's not even that calculated by this administration. I think this administration has had its hands tied over Israel for political reasons in its domestic run. It couldn't act on either side. It has been paralyzed. Donald Trump will not have that problem. Donald Trump is also anti-war. I've met so many ex-military people who say that they never bombed or killed as many people under Donald Trump's presidency as they did under Democrats before and after him. I don't think there's any conflict between Kennedy and Trump in seeking to get us out of wars. I think Graham's dead on about Ukraine. I think that Putin has been looking for a way out of that conflict for years and presented opportunities to this current administration, which were rebuffed. All it required was to not make Ukraine part of NATO. And Zelensky seems to already have seen the writing on the wall. Trump doesn't have to use economics to impose his power. There's a new sheriff in town. If Donald Trump is the president and he says to Iran, just don't, the world won't erupt in a cackle. All right, of laughter, because Biden just has no credibility on the world stage. Now, bad actors may be rushing to do all their bad acting before he comes in, and that may be what's going on in Syria and North Korea. But once he comes in, it seems to be that his presence alone, whether it's Hamas or Russia, is going to become a complete game changer, because they know that he's not paralyzed and impotent the way the current administration has been. So I think he can actually bring about peace, not even if the intention is to leave him saddled with conflict. This could actually come out, make him look even better if he can get America out of war and bring down the escalation, particularly in the Middle East. He can come out being a hero. But either way, I do think that he and Kennedy both will be determined to try to keep America out of wars and to keep these various conflicts from escalating.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. And I want to touch on, talking about Russia and Putin and some of the other things that are going on. And I need clarification on something, Andrew, because I keep hearing this, the Trump tariffs on this BRICS group. I literally don't know what that is. Is this a new thing that's going on, or?
Well, not really. BRICS has been around for a long time. So what is BRICS? So BRICS is a coalition of emerging market countries led by Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and they recently invited to join Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates. Now, the main objective of this group is to de-dollarize. Now, what is de-dollarize? The whole point of de-dollarization is to dethrone King Dollar and erase its, dollar hegemony in global financial markets. Graham was talking about Trump employing economic weapons to achieve his foreign policy objectives. That's something the administration has been clear on. Scott Bessent, the incoming Treasury Secretary, he wrote in a recent Fox News op-ed saying using tariffs will achieve many of these foreign policy aims. You see even the threat of Trump going on Truth Social saying, I'm going to slap 100% tariffs on any country engaging in anti-dollar activities. Now, China, it's been no secret, China and Russia have been at the forefront of this anti-dollar campaign for the last decade. But the thing is that it's accelerated since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now, China's already facing a plethora of tariff threats. You already have the current tariffs in place. Trump wants to impose as much as 100% tariffs on China. He just proposed another 10% tariff on China. So it'd be tariffs if they continue with this anti-dollar campaign. So with China in a very much weakened position compared to the first Trump term, it's very hard to see if China would say, okay, fine, let's continue on with this de-dollarization threat or this risk, when they're already suffering and facing slower economic conditions. You look at the other countries, the Indian rupee recently collapsed to an all-time low against the U.S. dollar because of that tariff threat in addition to weaker economic growth. The ruble is worth less than a penny. So it's hard to see if the Russian ruble could survive this current environment. The Brazilian real is weakening. Iran's energy sector could be decimated under a Trump administration. Ethiopia and Egypt, their economy is nothing. So this whole tariff threat against these anti-dollar countries should be very fascinating to observe, especially considering that the current administration has largely ignored this fact for the last few years. And the closest you get is Janet Yellen just repeating over and over again that the U.S. dollar is the reserve currency of the world, and there's no real alternative, and there's no vile competition out there. And she's, for the most part, correct. But this is a long-term initiative, and that whether it's premature on Trump's part, or he just wants to get the party, he wants to end the party before it even started, it will be quite interesting over the next few years.
So it's the long game.
Indubitably, the long game.
Indubitably. Okay, well, guys, now you know what we know. I just hope, let's just pray for a diplomatic solution and peace on earth, at least for Christmas. And thanks for watching, and thanks, panel. President-elect Trump has thrown the FBI into full body willies with his nomination of Kash Patel to lead the once-esteemed government bureau. I don't see this selection of Patel as controversial, but the leftist elite media is thrashing about using terms like loyalist to impugn the guy's character. John Clark, our lawyer on panel today. Will Trump get the confirmation votes to land Patel at the top corner office in the J. Edgar Hoover building? What can you tell us about the guy?
Well, that's a political and not a legal question. And I think that referring to Andrew's earlier comment in our other segment, that maybe it's a time for popcorn to watch. And what are the two sides in the arguments? Now, I find him to be fascinating. As an attorney, I have found it to be very helpful over the years to have multiple experiences. He has been both a criminal defense attorney, a public defender, I believe, federal public defender. He's also worked for the prosecution. He's worn a lot of different hats. And one of the main criticisms of him is that he's an outsider, that he didn't work up through the ranks of the FBI as is normally the case. I don't know that that's a disqualifying criticism. I think that's the whole point of what Trump is doing and what Americans have elected the Trump administration to do, which is to gut the obvious corruption that we have seen. One man's corruption is another man's lawfare. And so the big debate going on right now, and you'll hear people on the left and even in the international media saying, oh, Patel is saying that there's corruption in the FBI, and 99.9% of these agents are just really loyal, hardworking people that obey the Constitution. It begs the question. Patel is claiming that they're going to come in and clean up and hold accountable violations of that very document. So when it comes to confirmation, it's kind of, he's perhaps less controversial than a lot of the other candidates. I haven't heard about sexual predation yet against him, or that he wore blackface. He actually has a lot of credentials, and I think he's scaring the heck out of the establishment because he's talking about coming for blood, coming for accountability, not lawfare, which I think many people think that we've seen, but actual accountability and holding to the rule of law. And Dick Durbin said this, he said, the president-elect wants to replace his own appointee with an unqualified loyalist, referring to Christopher Wray. Gee, Democrats are objecting that Donald Trump would replace his own appointee with someone who he sees as more loyal. Isn't that his prerogative as president? Is that, I mean, if that's the best criticism you have, is he shouldn't be allowed to replace his own appointee? And one wonders why Wray is still there after 4 years of Biden. Why wouldn't Trump want to replace him? I don't see with the wave of energy and support behind this presidency and this election how they can really dethrone this pick. If Trump and others stand tall, I don't see it yet, but I do think that it's more of a political and a legal analysis. I think Trump wants outsiders and he wants loyalists. So what others are calling negatives about Patel, many in America might see as his greatest strengths.
Graham, is Patel the guy to turn the organization around, or should he have gone with, it's the top law office in the land. Should he have gone with somebody with more experience than that?
Well, I think yes, he is the man to turn the FBI around, but there are a few caveats attached to that. And number one, of course, is does he get confirmed? I think he will. I expect he will do much better at the confirmation hearing, than some people are expecting him to. I think he will hold his own very well, and I think he'll make his case. Now, should Trump have chosen him or somebody who's more of a, well, Trump didn't want, you see, all these government departments, they have their own cultures. The Department of Defense does, as I'm sure Dave Patterson would tell us about. The Justice Department has its own culture. The FBI, which is, of course, is just an agency within the Justice Department, has its own culture. And what? So we're going to now appoint yet one more person who's been steeped in that culture for their entire career, and just push them to the top floor there, up to the 7th floor, and have them run things. Well, what is ever going to change? So I think Kash Patel was a great choice. I think he could change things up, but of course he's going to have some strong headwinds blowing his way, even within the agency, within the bureau. He's going to have to butt heads with a lot of people. I would just say one thing about him being, unqualified loyalist, which I heard that as well from Dick Durbin. And well, here's the thing: unqualified. If you look at Biden's nominees, Biden filled his cabinet with DEI picks. That's what he did. People that were in very high positions within certain government departments and agencies were picked because of who they were, in terms of their sexual identity or what sexual identity they chose to adopt, and or what color their skin was, or anything else. It was just a complete circus of identity politics running the Biden administration. And the other thing is loyalist. Really, let's ask former Attorney General Eric Holder about that, who once said that he would always be the president's wingman. Those were his exact words. So, come on. I mean, all presidents choose people that they hope or believe are going to be loyal to them, not necessarily to them as a person, but to their agenda. And that's really what Trump wants. He's not looking for people who adore him personally. He's looking for people who are loyal to the America First agenda. And there's nothing wrong, therefore, with picking someone like Kash Patel who is loyal to that agenda. That's the kind of people he wants in there.
Who should be the most worried guy or gal at the FBI, Andrew?
Well, perhaps anyone who believes in the spying powers of the federal government. If they 100% endorse all the surveillance that the FBI and the Justice Department, the whole federal government has accumulated over the years, that perhaps they should be concerned. I've seen reports all over the press freaking out that Trump and his team, like Patel or Tulsi Gabbard, they oppose FISA Section 702, which allows the government to collect communication without a warrant. Now, Patel, he's got a record in the past saying he opposes this spying power that comes from the ashes of the Bush-Cheney administration. Now, what's interesting about this component it has bipartisan support among Republicans and Democrats, except among the libertarian-leaning ones. So when I believe it was Graham talking about the confirmation, if he goes before the Congress and to get confirmed, his position on that topic could be a source of controversy for the many Republicans and Democrats who supports this government encroachment of your personal liberty.
I just wonder, and I'm sure everybody wonders after the last 8 years. Dave, is anybody going to pay? Will feet be held to the fire, so to speak?
Sarah, I think so. I mean, inside the FBI, everybody knows who the bad actors are. And with any luck, they'll resign before being asked to. But all of the political appointees will be gone because they can't stay. And then it will be the career professionals who are at risk. But by Office of Personnel Management rules, after 120 days, all career professionals, senior executive service employees are at risk of being removed from their positions. Now, they can't be fired from the organization necessarily, but they can be moved to where they're not a problem.
Left in the basement in a closet.
Yeah, well, the Department of Defense is a fertile ground for removing and replacing, and I think the Trump team coming in really need to pay particular attention to very key senior executive positions that influence personnel actions, contracting, and budgeting. Particularly for the Office of the Secretary of Defense. These people have to be replaced with Trump people so that the processes that the Trump team will depend upon can move very swiftly and smoothly. But if you have these hangers on and these kinds of positions where they control money, the people, and the contracting, you're going to have a problem.
Well, I hear a lot about cabinet picks, and just in my circles in the middle of nowhere where I live, and on social media, and I don't feel anybody is out of place so far. Do I question if there's something better? I do. But, as Trump continues to design his administration, we will be here to explain who they are and why they're there and why he picked them. So thanks for watching, and thanks for all your input, panel. We are back to have a little fun with the panel post-election day and in this transition era. So let's have some fun, loosen up, and see where this crazy ride is going to take us this week. Andrew Moran, our economic comic, is running the board again. Take it away, our Canadian friend, and make it count for our friends watching.
Please, all you people, don't tariff us. Please, I beg you. Anyway, hello and welcome to another edition of C5 Trivia, brought to you by Kirsten Brooker and her terrible, horrible, no good, very bad list of questions. I'm only kidding, of course. I think they're wonderful and they're excellent and they're amazing. But before we begin, I'd just like to say one thing. Angola is a vibrant city. And look, not the city. The city I know is not in Angola, but in Angola there is a vibrant city. And now on to the really big show. But first, a word from our sponsor named Follow the Rules. Rule number 1, please wait until questions and answers are read. Rule 2, let's cut off Dave Patterson's microphone. Okay.
Yeah,
and now on to the really big show here. Okay, question 1. Pam Bondi, President-elect Donald Trump's pick for U.S. Attorney General, spent 9 years as the Attorney General for what state? Georgia, Alabama, or Florida?
Florida.
I believe Sarah got that one. And you can read it more.
We all knew it. I just wasn't quick enough.
I see how this is going.
Sarah did not get that one. I believe I was the last guy who said it.
But John and Graham got it too. There we go. All right, so question 2. The CEO of Blue Sky, the left's leading alternative to X, which is absolutely horrible, mind you, recently told CNBC's Money Movers that the platform is bankrupt, billionaire proof, or free from conservative
Billionaire proof. Billionaire proof.
Billionaire proof.
John, yay! Nice, good job, man. Nice. Good job. Okay.
You're acing me out of getting my coffee cup. Come on.
All right. Question number 3. Which president was elected 4 times? Was it Franklin Delano Roosevelt, William Henry Harrison, or Grover Cleveland, Graham?
Hey!
Franklin Delano Roosevelt, obviously.
Well, actually, Sarah got that one. Sorry, Graham. I gave you a heads up, man. All right, next question here.
That was out of nowhere. I like that question.
I see Dave becoming perturbed by this. I see it. Yeah.
I've got time. I've got time to win.
Well, Dave, just keep your own points so we know when that coffee cup is going to be up for delivery.
Okay, next question here. What 170-plus-year-old news titan is struggling to stay afloat and has plans to reduce its staff by 8%? The New York Post, the Associated Press, or the Hartford Court?
Associated Press.
Yes, Dave got that one. Yep, Dave got that. All right, next question here. What is the intergovernmental organization OECD responsible for? Is it responsible for finding solutions to social, economic, and environmental challenges? Planning for and discussing world challenges regarding war and multinational distress? Or creating jobs for underprivileged families and individuals?
A.
Yeah, John,
C.
good job, man. Yeah, but I'll tell you, no, it doesn't do any of those things. The OECD is a worthless organization.
Yes,
Okay,
it
I'm
is.
telling everybody. Graham agrees.
They have some of the best receptions ever.
All right, next question here. Ooh, Thanksgiving. Oh, hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Oh, you enjoy your tofurkey and all your soy-based products. I'm sure it was absolutely wonderful here. But
It's
anyway,
probably chemically laden and gross, but let's move on.
well, I know John, he deep fried his turkey in beef tallow. I don't know if anyone knew that. John joined that Kennedy bandwagon. Anyway, what year was the first Thanksgiving feast? 1634, 1658, or 1621?
1634.
21.
Actually, sorry, Dave. Sarah is correct. The answer is 1621, which is incidentally the same year Nancy Pelosi was born. Next question.
My 8th great grandfather was at that first Thanksgiving. I'll thank you very much for noticing that.
Yeah, I see the resemblance. Yeah, it's a lot. I see same eyes. Anyway,
Good old Edward Doty.
how about Uncle Bosie? I don't know if anyone knew Uncle Bosie
No,
had
I think he
Thanksgiving
wasn't
feast
there.
Off the,
We ate him.
the ocean. Okay, anyway, moving
It
on.
was eaten by pygmies.
All right, next question. In response to Trump's plan to eliminate federal tax credits for buyers of electric vehicles, California Governor Gavin Newsom is offering rebates to Californians who purchase EVs unless they are made by Fisker, Rivian, or Tesla.
Tesla.
Yes, the answer is Tesla. And this is absolutely hysterical that Newsom is doing this for the only car that people want, a Tesla. Anyway, don't get me started on Newsomonomics. Okay, Defense Secretary Antony Blinken sat with the Italian foreign minister and discussed Russia's hiring of 11,000 troops from Dave. You cannot answer this question. Okay, no answer from Dave. Was it
You mean
China?
because I wrote the article?
Probably.
North Korea, or Japan?
B.
North Korea.
Yes, John. Yes, John. Good job. All right, final question.
My
here.
microphone must be
we're already
muted.
approaching the end of the C5 Just for Fun segment. Hope all our audience had a wonderful time. So, last question. SB 54, also known as the California Values Act, officially affirmed that California is a sanctuary state for illegal aliens, the leading state in climate change efforts, or the leading the U.S. in welfare and social security provisions.
Sanctuary state.
All three.
That's a
Probably.
good answer. Then. Yeah,
And
that's a
all
good
of the
answer.
above.
But I have to go by the rules here, and the rule was I only could get one answer, and the answer was a sanctuary state for illegal aliens. And sorry, who answered that? John answered it, right? Or Graham or
Dave.
Sarah? One of you three
I
answered.
think Dave.
One of you three answered. Graham, yeah, Graham got it. Yeah, so Graham got it. Sanctuary state for illegal aliens. Yep. So that's it for C5 trivia today. I hope you had a wonderful time. And we all know the real winners, you lovely people who watch us every single time.
And the
amen
Back
to
to
that.
Sarah Cowgill.
And thanks for playing, guys. And we hope we left you more smiles and less confusion than I have right now. And thanks, panel. You guys are great. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation News has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. Now, Liberty Nation does not endorse candidates, campaigns, or legislation, and this presentation is no endorsement. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today for the latest news and commentary. Your choice for free thinking, free speech, libertynation.com.